What's going on, boys? Today we're going to be plasti dipping our daily driver project car over here, but there's a little bit of a twist with our plasti dipping shenanigans today. As you can see, the entire car is plasti dipped. We are working on a 3D printed front lip for the car, but that's not today's video. Never mind. The entire car is plasti dipped, the grill is plasti dipped, but I've always been annoyed by these little trim pieces over here, these chrome trim pieces. They really annoy the absolute daylights out of me. So today we're gonna be fixing that by plasti dipping them, but there's a little bit of a twist and there is some experimentation that needs to go on. So hopefully that goes well. Let me tell you more about our experiment. So in a previous video, I plasti dipped my entire car. I'll leave the link to that video if you want to check it out. But here's the thing with plasti dipping. When I plasti dipped the entire car, I obviously used a full-size sprayer. So this is a turbine, this is a spray gun, and this is what I used to plasti dip the entire car. Now you might be thinking, what's the problem? Well, here's the thing. Whenever you want to do like smaller pieces, like the trim pieces I just showed you, it's really annoying to use this kind of full-size spray system. Like it's really heavy, it's a lot to set up, and it's really noisy. So if you're doing something small, you don't always want to whip out the full-size sprayer. But here's the thing, this is our experiment. What do you do when you want to paint small little trim pieces? Do you whip out the full-size sprayer, or do you do this? Ta-da! Now I know what you're thinking. That looks like the same sprayer you showed us before. No, silly, we're gonna be using this. Now I know what you're thinking. This is crazy, but hear me out. This is an air spray gun. Teeny tiny little gun. It's literally smaller than my hand. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're gonna use an air spray gun to plasti dip a car. I think for some jobs, this is perfect. So let me show you what I mean. I think this gun is perfect because it's really compact. As you can see, it has this compressor which allows you to vary the power output. And of course it has a lot of adjustments as well. So I actually feel like it's placed perfectly between a full-size sprayer and a rattle can. It fills in that middle niche really well. This is a portable power station which I'm using to power the gun because, again, you'd normally plug this gun in, but it's so convenient to have this because it makes it portable enough that you can just freely go around the car spraying it. So this is the entire setup. It's the air gun itself, the compressor, plus that portable power station that you see down there. And I really think you guys will find this setup interesting. So I really think this kind of system, if this works today, I really think this is good for two reasons. One, this kind of gun is exceptional at spraying an entire car. Why? You need that wide spray fan so you can do those 50-50 overlaps. If any of you have been watching Fonzie's videos, you know about the 50-50 overlaps. But remember, plasti dip also comes in rattle cans, right? A lot of the times when we're plasti dipping wheels or things like that, we use plasti dip straight from a rattle can. Why? Because it's just simpler, faster, and easier for smaller things. For smaller things, hear me out, for smaller things to use a rattle can. Now, where this comes in really handy is that the spray fan of this gun is really similar to a rattle can as opposed to the full-size sprayer. So with this, you can spray much smaller, much precise things, and it comes out the same way it would come out from a rattle can. Right, so of course, never use this kind of thing for larger jobs, but for smaller things like trim pieces where a rattle can would give you amazing results, this is much better than a rattle can. The next thing we have to tackle is we now need paint. Okay, so I obviously have a lot of plasti dip because I plasti dipped my entire car, and I have a lot of dip left over. The problem is, it's this color. Okay, it's the same color as the majority of, you know, the bodywork of the car, but I want to make these trim pieces black. So I'm hoping that with these mica powder pearls, I can just absolutely overload them into a reduced amount of the gray plasti dip, and that will give me a result that, of course, it's not gonna be true black. I'm hoping it's gonna give me a really nice effect, a really nice result that will kind of be more unique than if I had just used normal black Plasti Dip. So that's our experiment today, boys. Let's see if this works. So before I got started, I had to remove the side mirrors from the car so I could also remove the trim pieces on the doors. So that's what I'm doing here. You can see I've removed the side mirror, and then I just went around the rest of the car, removing the rest of the trim pieces and the front mirror on the other side. All right, fourth and final trim piece off. Hopefully this is not gonna be this nasty chrome color. I just think a mod like this is really cool, especially on an older car. Like dechroming some of these pieces once they get janky and scratched up and all nasty can really make your car look nice. And again, this is our daily driver project car, so this is like the perfect thing to do to it. Now, I luckily still have this from having dipped my entire car before. If you can't tell, I'm really proud of the fact that I dipped my entire car myself. Anyway, Fonzie, if you're watching, send me something, bro. So I got started with the masking, and if you've ever painted a car before or dipped a car, you know that your masking is really important because it can really have a huge impact on results. Alright guys, so the masking is done now. Maybe a little bit of overkill because like I said, I'm doing just the small section here, but I don't want any overspray. I'm being really careful. And again, remember your prep work is really important. So that's done. I'm painting this longer section here on the front, and obviously the other side is done too. Have a look at that. And of course the passenger side rear quarter is done as well. I know it looks a little different on different sides, but yeah, that's just how it comes out when you're doing DIY. So yeah, now that that's done, it's time for our little experiment to get underway. We're mixing the paint. Again, we are absolutely overloading the black pearl into the gray Plasti Dip to try to get it as dark as possible. Now here I was preparing the paint. Because I have very pure unprepared Plasti Dip, I have to reduce it. This would be different if you bought Plasti Dip from a store or something like that, but I got my Plasti Dip directly from a manufacturer of peelable paint, which is why I'm having to do all of this myself. But depending on where you get your Plasti Dip, you might not have to do this. But yes, I probably seem like a mad scientist right now mixing my own paint. All right, boys, so this is our mixture so far. I'm happier with the consistency of this dip because yeah, again, it's not too thick, it's not too thin, which I think is gonna be good for the sprayer that we're using today. You know, that Plasti Dip is matte, so it is gonna be more of a matte finish. I am thinking of spraying a satin finish on my whole car in the future. Already looking much, much darker. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mix that in and see how close we get to a truly black dip. I definitely think I seem like a mad scientist right now. I forgot to mask up these trim pieces. All right, boys, the moment of truth has finally arrived. Let's see if this mixture is done correctly. This is my touch-up kit setup. So this is not just a regular air gun. I made sure that this air gun can handle automotive paint. Alrighty, here we go. All right, that is not black. It's not black, but it's darker than it was before. So I don't know, perhaps this will work, but let's, obviously that's just the first coat. It's our light coat. So let's get more coats on and see what it's gonna look like. So I just kept spraying the car. I did a lot of layers and I did have some troubleshooting to do, but unfortunately my camera had died, so I didn't get to show you guys that, but I will explain it at the end when I go through the pros and cons of this particular setup and this process, and I just explain everything to you guys. So if you are super interested in that, just you'll see that at the end of the video. But once I got those teething problems out the way, once I did that troubleshooting, everything went really smoothly. And yeah, I just, it was just repetition at this point, doing all my layers over and over again to build up enough dip on the trim pieces.
Yeah, play we like Nintendo. Pull away and then go right back into my arms. Whoa, tell me why we don't show real feelings. I know if we did we could really grow, but look at us keeping it low. Yeah, we should commit but just play. Stays all that I pray. So cray, up down, yo yo, yeah. Mayday, mayday, get in trouble all day. All we do is just play games. Ay, mouth saying to me go, face say no no, but your body saying just show me what you wanna do. Call me and you say come through. Think twice, yeah, I got no clue what I do in a room with just you. When a pearl on your body is few. You say stay right when I go. Dim the lights and you glow. Pull me close like you owe me every inch of you. See you when I love the view, and I know that you got moves. Hey, veteran don't need no how to. Yeah, we should commit but just play. Stays all that I pray. So cray, up down, yo yo, yeah.
So what I'm doing here is I'm now fully wetting out each of the chrome pieces that I'm painting, and this is a process where you lay the dip on heavier than you did initially, just to make sure that you're building up those layers. Make sure it's not too much though, because you don't want it to pool or run, because that will give you a bad result. But once you've had enough experience dipping, you're able to very accurately gauge this, and at this point the gun was performing really well, so I was in a really nice rhythm here with everything I was doing, and I just kept on going, and I was starting to see the results. I was seeing the trim pieces turn darker, which I loved. Okay, and I am finally done with the spraying. I'm really tired. My hands look absolutely disgusting. But yeah, done with the spraying, so I'm gonna get the masking off. Hopefully we have no accidents. Hopefully we don't damage any of the pre-existing dip on the car. I'm not too sure if these are a peel when wet area, but I guess we'll find out. Let me get everything back on, show you guys the final result, and then I'm gonna give you my best practices for using this spray gun, my do's and don'ts, my pro tips, my pros and cons, all of that good stuff. So let's get that done, and we need to get out of here, man. We need to eat. Sponsored by Joja. Shout out to Joja for sending these drinks. I guess that makes Joja our first sponsor on the channel. Joja is my assistant, by the way. So anyway, and boys, after much struggle, we are done and dusted. I'm not at the car wash, but it's after midnight. There's no way I'm getting to the car wash. Plus the dip needs to dry. I'm gonna give it enough time to get nice and dry. But yeah, it looks much better de-chromed. Like, it looks much better. Take a look at that. Ooh-wee, that janky silver chrome is gone. There's a contrast between the main body and the trim pieces, so I'm happy with that. And plus, this was my first time using my specialty touch-up gun, so this gives me a chance to get some black dip in the future and I guess do it again. But yeah, this turned out really nice. Now it's time for my explanations of the spray gun, my do's and don'ts, pros and cons, all of that good stuff. So here we go. Okay, boys, so what is the conclusion to our trim piece Plasti Dip saga? Well, everything went smoothly, as you've seen by the results. This is better than using a rattle can, because there are some things that we would use rattle cans for to Plasti Dip, which is why Plasti Dip is sold in rattle cans as well. but this is just so much better. You can adjust different things to, adjust your spray fan. You can do all sorts of things with it, and this can handle automotive paint. So my review is that this system definitely works. Now, let me talk about some of the drawbacks and the cons before I move on to the good stuff. The first con is that if you don't know what you're doing, if you are relatively inexperienced with Plasti Dip, it might take you a few, attempts of trial and error to get it right. It did take me one or two, but I have a lot of experience with Plasti Dip. But if you don't, it might take you a little longer to figure out. And basically the only thing is you need to make sure that your dip is thin enough. Depending on where you get your dip from, you might not have a problem with that because it might already be the perfect viscosity. But if you're using Plasti Dip that is unreduced, like how I was, so if you're getting your Plasti Dip straight from, the factory or the supplier, manufacturer, then you might have to reduce it yourself. So just make sure it is thin enough. Not so wet that it starts to run easily, but not so thick that it clogs up your gun. Once I got the perfect formula, I was good to go. The second con, the fact that it's so small. This is not a 100% con because of course, I'm calling this system a touch-up gun, right? Because you are only supposed to use this for, touch-ups and smaller things. So the fact that this is small might not be a con to everyone, but I do wish that, this was a little bit larger just so that I wouldn't have to refill it as often. But yeah, that depends on how you look at it. So those are really the only two cons that I found when I was working with this. One was just making sure that the viscosity is perfect so that the gun doesn't jam. But other than that, it can handle, automotive paint, which is why I picked this particular model. Now, let's move on to the good stuff. Like I said, it comes with this compressor, at least the one I got. And this is really good because you can adjust the power output of the gun. So depending on what you're spraying, depending on how much paint you want coming out of the gun, you can adjust all of that using this compressor. So even though this gun doesn't have, let's say, as much adjustment, on the nozzle as a full-size sprayer, but the fact that it does have some adjustment over here and the fact that you've got this means that even if you don't have different tips or nozzles here, you're still pretty much good to go. So if you've got a rattle can as your most basic option, this would sit above that definitely, but of course the full-size sprayer in terms of needing to paint an entire car or larger panels or bigger jobs, that would still be your go-to, but I would say this fits in nicely. So another pro of this is you can use this for touch-ups. So if you've ever had a Plasti Dip car before, or if you're planning on Plasti Dipping your car, you might get, stone chips. You might get some peeling that you're gonna have to address. There might be things that you didn't do correctly the first time. Something like this allows you to get a small amount of dip in here, which is why I said before that the fact that this is so small might not be a con, but it allows you to get a small amount of dip in here to fix things like that. So what is my review of this spray gun touch-up system thing that I've come up with? I definitely recommend that you guys get something like this, especially for those little touch-ups, those quick fixes. If you have a peel or a small little tear in your dip, it's not feasible for you to whip out the full-size sprayer. And the amount of dip that you need to fix that little stone chip or imperfection might be so small. The amount of dip that you would need to fix it might be so small that it wouldn't make any sense to load up that teeny little bit amount of dip into a full-size sprayer. Whereas with this, you can literally put just a few milliliters of dip. You can put this much dip in here, and that would be enough to basically cover up whatever you need to cover up. Something that I did forget as well to mention is that because the dip that you use in this gun has to be thinner, you do have to do more coats than you would typically do. So basically how I did it was I made an amount of dip that I was happy with, and I told myself, okay, I'm gonna make sure to use all of this dip on these trim pieces, right? And by the time all of this dip is finished, that's when I'll stop. So I basically wasn't counting how many coats I was doing. I was going based off of making sure I use all the paint that I made, because of course the paint that's going to come out of this is going to be thinner, so you are going to have to do a lot of coats. But is that a pro? Is that a con? Depending on how you look at it, I guess that's up in the air. So yeah, boys, that is the video on our touch-up gun system. Again, make sure you subscribe to the channel. More plasti dipping videos coming soon. Let me know in the comments what other parts of my car you recommend I Plasti Dip. But thank you so much for tuning into this one. I'll see you guys very soon in the next plasti dipping video. It's gonna be another interesting one, boys. But yeah, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time. Peace.